All right, so we've run a poll quickly, and the results show that 7 out of 9 people participated. A lot of you have come across abandoned kittens. Some knew what to do with them, and others figured it out. There's capacity for some to be foster parents, while others can't handle it at the moment. A lot of us have pets within the home, and both dogs and cats. So I just wanted to gauge to see where we are in terms of knowing what to do with foster kittens or cats. So karibu sana to the session. My name is Naomi Mutua, as you may all know. Welcome to the podcast. This is our 5th edition, and we're very pleased to have our guests tonight. We have Sarah Jamal and Dr. James Nyariki, who are going to take us through this session. So I'll introduce the two, and I'll let them also have a chance to speak to you. One moment. So Sarah is an entrepreneur, but we know her more for being a foster, a very committed foster and rescuer, and especially of cats. She volunteers mainly with TNR Trust, and often is behind the scenes during many of our rescues and neuter operations across a lot of public spaces and housing estates in Nairobi. I think especially in the Parklands area, Sarah has been very instrumental in getting stray populations under control. So if you want to find Sarah, wherever you find cats, you'll probably find her there. And wherever there's a spay and neuter campaign, she's probably also right there. She runs Yaya Pet Shop, which is an online pet store that is committed towards donating funds towards animal rescue and welfare programs. So karibu sana Sarah. Additionally, we have Dr. James Nyariki, who's the vet surgeon at KSPCA. He has very extensive experience both in Kenya and Sudan, in large and small animal welfare, in veterinary practice, and specifically in shelter medicine, because the circumstances around animals in shelters are very different as opposed to pets in our homes. So he's got very exemplary skills as a surgeon. I think he's one of the few who can manage to spay a cat in record time. So you should see him doing that in one of the campaigns. And he's also done a bit of work as a primate researcher, spending part of his career at the Institute for Primate Research in Nairobi. The one thing I know about Dr. James is that he's curious about technology. Computer science was his first love. And then at some point he changed his mind and he decided to become a vet surgeon. And we're happy for that. So karibu sana, Sarah and Dr. James. Sarah, just give me a moment to unmute you. James, maybe you can start and say hi to everybody.
Hi, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the invite, and I'm happy to be here and to enjoy the chat, especially about fostering cats. It's an important thing considering the kind of environment we have in the city, whereby you have so many stray cats, and especially kittens who need our help. Okay. So I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Karibu sana, and we're here to learn from your extensive expertise. Sarah, karibu to the session. Feel free to say something.
Hi, Naomi and everyone. Well, I think this is an important session because on a daily basis, it's an issue that we deal with. So I think tackling this issue would really help a lot of people to join the cause and start helping as well, because it's not a one-man job.
All right. Thank you for being here, both of you. So we'll kick off the session and we'll have a Q&A at the end of it. So feel free to also raise your hand or put up a message in the chat if you have questions during the sessions, and we'll either attend to them immediately or pass them on to the end of the session. So we can start with what fostering is and what it really entails, going through what resources are needed. And then Dr. James will take us through what fostering under KSPCA entails. So maybe, Sarah, you can tell us from your experience as a foster, what have you found that are the resources that you really need to have to begin? Sarah seems to have dropped off. So as we wait for her to rejoin, Sarah, are you there?
Hi, Naomi. Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself.
Okay.
So regarding fostering, yes, like I get a lot of calls about people finding a kitten, they're not sure what to do with it and stuff like that. So not everyone I know that have the resources or the time. So it's good to approach people who do have the time and resources. Nonetheless, it's also a collective action kind of process that we all must participate in. So fostering is basically taking care of a kitten or a cat that otherwise don't have any other place to be in or in a difficult situation, and meaning that you will provide for them the place to stay in, the food, the medical care that they might need, because mostly those cats are in bad conditions that are found in. And as a fosterer I've been a fosterer since 2017, I think. That's when I really started doing this. And I actually, I ended up even quitting my job because this is a full-time job for some, especially depending on the age of the cat. So I think the first thing that you need to focus on is first determine the age of the cat, because that will determine how you take care of that cat. Because if it's a kitten, how many times you need to feed it, what you need to do, that you need to be available for that kitten most of the time. I remember one of your posts, like you had an outing and then you had to take the kittens with you. And that happens a lot with fosters, that we have to take them wherever we are going because they cannot survive without feeding every 2-3 hours or something like that. You have to be committed. It's not an easy job, but it is a very rewarding job. And you need to give it your time, your energy. Sometimes you get frustrated, you're not sure what to do, but that's why you join a community of other people who are on the same boat, other people who are willing to give you a helping hand and make it easier for you when it's too difficult or you cannot handle the situation. You also have to be able to afford it, because it's a lot of food, litter, vet bills, and things like that that you need to be up to it. So finding a source of income, especially if you are doing it on a full-time basis, is essential. And that's why I started the Pet Shop, because that's the only way I can afford for those kittens and rescues. Other than that, it becomes really difficult. But again, it's about also being part of the community who are willing to help, the way Cat Lovers Kenya offered the kitty fund, and they've helped a lot of cats.
Okay. Yeah, it's true, but especially that commitment is really what takes a lot of your energy, because like you're saying, you need to be able to be available for the kittens. You know, you have to wake up at odd hours to feed them. Like I do, I carry them around when I have to, depending on their age. If they're if they're bottle feeding, you might want to carry them around with you. And so that also means that even when you travel, you have to take into consideration how far you're going and whether you can take them with you.
Yes.
So Dr. James, maybe you can also explain to us how KSPCA kind of determines the fosters that they take on and what help you give to the fosters.
Yeah, right. So because KSPCA being one of the shelters here in Nairobi, when people find kittens, the first place or first port of call is us. And we usually receive kittens from day old, as young as day old, sometimes even as old as 12 weeks. Like we have a range, even as old as 12 to 15-year-old cats.
Mhm.
Now, considering the shelter, we covered most of Nairobi and Kenya. Our resources are a bit stretched, so that's why we usually work with fosters. These are people who have opened their homes to help us take care of these cats with their time, money, and resources, every other resource that they need. So at the KSPCA, usually when we receive the cats, the first thing is we have to make sure that the cat, we do the initial medical care. That include treating any infection that is going on, defleeing, deworming, making sure that they're clean. And if they are due for vaccination, these are done. And then we get in touch with these people whom we consider our fosters. The fosters are people who either have requested us, they can help us do the work, or the people who we've worked with and we've they've checked all the boxes of what we believe are fosters. So it means that we need to have the time to feed the cats, because even kittens can come as a day as 1 week old and they need to be fed every 2 hours. So you need somebody who will have that time to do that, because you can't have a week-old kitten and you're feeding it every, let's say, 6 or 12 hours. I mean, the kitten will not survive. So it needs somebody who's able to do that. And from us, mostly, we also look at the people who are near us, because in case of any medical emergency, they can easily come back to us to help them. Otherwise, we usually have also people who are near vet clinics with whom we have agreements with, so that they can take care of the kitten and we'll find a way of working things out with them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, that's quite comprehensive. And yes, especially the veterinary care is very important, because as a foster, you don't always know what to do with the kittens.
Yeah, exactly. Because
any symptoms.
because whenever the agreement is usually whenever the cat is sick, we as KSPCA, if a fostering kittens under us, we take care of all the medical expenses. This includes vaccination, deworming for that period of time, until also once they have been adopted, we sterilize them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So looking at what to do immediately you find a cat or a kitten, maybe Sarah can take us through what to do with a kitten, especially if they're under 8 weeks. And then Dr. James, you'll give us some tips for adult cats.
Okay, so I usually get calls about people finding cats and kittens, especially small kittens. So the main thing, the first thing that I tell them is that first, have you seen the mama? Have you located the mama? Because that's the main thing you need to do. Kittens are much better off with their mom than with a foster, because the nutrients, the warmth, the life skills that mama provides for them are more comprehensive than a foster would. And so first thing you would do is that locate the mom. If you're sure you left the kitten in its place, as long as it's safe, there is no threat like other cats, other dogs, or even children or other humans who might disturb the kittens. Just monitor from far, see if the mama comes back. If the mama comes back, try to provide a safe place for them to continue their period of caring of the kittens. The second thing you would do if you don't find the mama, or you realize that the mama was hit by a car or something like that, is that first thing you do is that you keep the kittens warm. You can use a hot water bottle wrapped in a cloth so the kittens won't get burned, and you can put some blankets in a box or something like that, because when they are small, their movement is limited, and so you can handle them in a basket or in a picnic basket or just even laundry basket, and keep them warm. Then next thing you can do is that if you're able to find a foster that is able to take care of those kittens, that's well and good. But if you don't, you still have to take care of those kittens. So you will follow some steps like feeding them. You have to be very careful because you have to use the right method of feeding a small kitten with the right tools. I found Kitten Lady on YouTube, very resourceful, and I actually learned most of my skills through her. So you can visit that YouTube channel, get all the information you need about bottle feeding, about how to stimulate a kitten to go toilet, and how to keep them warm, how to even estimate their age. So those are the first. I even like have the videos handy that I send them to anyone who asks me, like, what am I supposed to do with those kittens? So for the time being, sometimes you find them at night, so you cannot relocate them to a new place. So you make sure that you've covered those main things, keeping them warm, feed them, stimulate them, and keep them safe. That's when you find a kitten, the first thing you might have, unless you have something else to add, Naomi.
Okay, so yeah, usually I also isolate them for a bit because I don't know if they are sick and having other cats or even having other foster kittens in the home. It could be something that could be easily spread. So I isolate them for about a few days and observe to see if they've got any symptoms. Then depending on their age, we can go in for vaccines and deworming and those basic things. If they're above 8 weeks, I do give them a bath immediately they come home, because at that age they can handle it, just to manage the fleas that are on them, because most of them tend to always have fleas, less of ticks, but more of fleas. And then again, depending on their age, if I can then add on to that with flea drops or any other flea sprays that I can utilize, then I'll do that maybe a week after the first bath.
Yes. Another thing I would add is that with small kittens, especially under 8 weeks old, the small, really sickly ones, what I do for them is I use a flea comb, because it's the safest option for them. And you're not exposing them to too much chemicals or too much cold. So I think it's also good to have that handy with you.
Okay. Dr. James, maybe is there any other different things to do when it comes to adult cats? And this is especially maybe when you're dealing with semi-feral or feral cats. Are there things we should be aware of or think about?
Usually, I mean, everything that you've said for kittens usually apply for adult cats. But then, because for us, our protocol is whenever an adult cat comes in, the first thing we do is we do a complete medical check. So that means, number one, we check the coats for any ectoparasites. Those are flea, ticks. Sometimes they may even have mites. So, and we make sure that everything is okay. Initially, what we usually do, like Sarah said, we prefer to use a flea comb to check for everything. The flea comb is really important, especially for both for the babies and the adults, because it helps to tell you infestation. Sometimes it also helps to get out the flea darts, which will tell you something is going on. Once you have done that, we also check their mouth, make sure they have inside their mouth, do they have ulcers, and they're having issues with their teeth. Is there an off smell, which could mean an infection is going on? After that, also we check other things like the eyes, ears, to make sure there's no infection. Look at the bum area. The bum area will tell you if there's diarrhea going on, plus it will help you to sex the cat, making sure that it's to check if it's a boy or a girl. Once they've passed the medical check, that's the time now we make a plan for the treatment, that is vaccination, deworming, and making sure that we have their records in our system. So basically that. Any of the sick cats, if you notice that a cat is sick, we isolate them, do diagnostic testing, making sure everything is okay before we start on any other, like before we give them vaccines or deworming.
Okay. Now that, I mean, once you have a kitten or a bunch of kittens in the home, it's often important to give them a space that is comfortable for them. So Sarah, maybe you can give us an example of what kind of setup you generally have especially if you have more than one kitten.
Okay, so just last week I had like around 20 cats in my house. So
Wow.
yeah. So basically, as you mentioned before, Naomi, is that isolation is very important for new incoming kittens, because first, you don't want them to be exposed to more stress from other cats. Another thing, you don't want to expose your cats and your other rescues to unknown diseases or infections that the kittens might have. That can be even skin infections, can be cat flu, can be anything. You never know. So you get a kitten, you think, oh, this kitten looks okay, but you never know what's going on inside that kitten. So usually that period is within 10 to 14 days, as much as you can, because I know sometimes we are limited in space. So you'll find every room in my house, there are like kittens separated. But once you've gotten the kittens, you make sure that you have them in closed space, so they are not getting lost on the beds or get out of a window or something like that. They need to be warm, so a nice bedding, some blankets, some old towels even. Like anyone can actually provide that for the kittens to keep them warm. And a hot water bottle, a heating pad, a heating mat would be handy as well, because it will keep them warm, especially when they are very small and the weather is really cold. When they are very small, they will need it either way, whether it's hot or cold, because they cannot regulate their temperature. And you will need also you'll need pee pads, because they might sometimes soil themselves. Because sometimes you would still stimulate them, but there's some left, and you will come and you will see the place is a disaster. So you might need to change the bedding. And you also need from 3 weeks old, actually, you can teach kittens to start using the litter box. They will still have a bit of accidents here and there, but when they are in a limited space, you limit their movement, so they think, okay, I have to use that place for my litter. Weighing scale is very important. That's the first thing I do when I receive a kitten, is that I weigh them, because it tells me the progress. It tells me where the kitten is, even the age from their weight. So weighing scale, a small kitchen in weighing scale, you don't need something fancy. And then you make sure that you record this weighing their weight regularly. Like actually at the beginning, I do it every day, sometimes even after feedings, to make sure that they are progressing and not regressing. And yeah, and there are some charts even online to tell you if the cat is on the right weight or not.
Okay. Yeah, I generally also do that weighing in the morning and in the evening, because with every major feeding, just so that I can keep track. And I do it before feeding so that I'm sure that the weight they have is not the food weight only.
Yes.
Yeah. Dr. James, do you have anything to add on that? Have we missed anything? Is James still here? James, can you hear me? Okay, I think the other thing maybe to think about is when we're setting up the kitten area, depending on how many kittens you have, there's you can buy some setup tools, either things like large cages that can hold even an adult cat. You can buy the separating panels, but unfortunately, most of these things are not available locally. You have to buy them online and import them.
Actually, they're available at Yaya Pet Shop.
Okay, yes. What I mean is that they're not made here.
Yes.
But yes, we can definitely find them with you.
But definitely they make a difference, because you don't end up using the whole place. You can still use your room, but there is a corner for the kitten.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And if you have a bunch of kittens, one room can hold a lot of kittens.
Yes.
With those isolated areas. And then the thing I invest in heavily is baby blankets, because when kittens pee and poop, they can really go through a lot of beddings. So I invest heavily in baby blankets, which you can find anywhere in a market or at a pet stop.
Or even towels if you don't have
Yes.
that.
Yes. Or even
Yeah.
t-shirts, scarves,
Yes.
anything that is warm
We
and
use them
cozy.
all.
Yes. All
That's
right.
true. Another thing,
Mhm.
if I may add, about
Yeah.
monitoring the kitten, you have
Mhm.
to realize how to read your kitten. If a kitten is dull or something, that's your cue to call your vet and ask for help. Most
Yeah.
vets are more than willing to help. People are sometimes scared of expense of calling the vet, but in
Mhm.
reality, those vets are willing to wait for us to pay. They are willing to give us discounts. They are willing even sometimes to waive the whole bill. Sometimes we can ask help from our community. So please do not delay because of expense, because that would cost a life. A small
Yeah.
delay, even a small delay, and you think there is a huge issue and it is just deworming. So you might as well ask the vet who will help you with that. And they will be really patient. I have, like, in general, like I would say 90% of the times I've had like vets who are more than willing to help. So, and I think they are our regular vets who know what we are doing and who are willing to help. And once you tell them it's a stray kitten, they might go out of the way to help you. So please approach your vets and ask for help.
Yeah, it's true, because a lot of people don't want to call the vet because they imagine that the expense will be so high even for a consultation. And like you're saying, yeah, most of the time the vets will waive that fee and
Yeah.
just assist you because they need to save the life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as
If I
James,
may
as
add, if I may add on the one of the way of checking the progress, on average, what we've noticed that kittens usually gain about 100 grams a week. So the weighing scale really helps to actually gauge that. So that if you notice that the kitten is not gaining the target weight per week, then there's something could be going on. So it could either be the food is not adequate, or it's not providing the required nutrition, or it probably may be dealing with parasites that may be causing, maybe ectoparasites that may be causing issues with the cat, or if you're having endoparasites like worms, or any other disease that can be seen, can be going on and not actually being seen at that moment.
Yeah.
Another thing, when you're setting up a place for kittens, also remember, if you're going to use a carrier for them, you need to place the carrier there so that the kittens can start getting used to being carried. Because being carried in a carrier to the vet all the time is usually a stressful event for them. So if you place it in there, plus their toys, so they'll start getting used going in without any stress or any fear, and then they'll be comfortable with it. Even when the time comes for you to transport them to the veterinarian, they won't be having or going through stress. So it's very important to start doing that from the outset.
It's true, because a lot of us, when once you have the carrier, you hide it after, or you put it away immediately after you finished your vet visits. So that's a good tip, so that the cats get used to it.
Yeah.
All right. So as we speak about vet care,
Yep.
what would your tips be for, what are the critical things that one should do to make sure that this kitten is in good health?
One thing, there's this talk, people say that cats hide diseases. One feature I'll go into. It's one of the things I have come to learn, especially here in the shelter, whereby when you're doing your rounds in the morning, you'll find kittens are active and playing. Then 2 hours later, they are critical. Sometimes you even ask yourself, did I miss something, or am I doing it all wrong? But this is just an evolutionary development for cats, whereby they learn to sort of, cats are predators, but also they are also prey by themselves. So they've learned to sort of mask their disease so that they don't appear weak to the predators, animals who might be preying on them. So one of the most important things is you have to be really careful and like observant when you're having kittens, because it's easy to miss a sign that might be pointing out to disease. So when you're examining cats, the critical things to do is making sure that anything that you can see visually are okay. So like I mentioned earlier, the eyes, ears, the coats, and the bum, they can easily tell you what is going on, and the nose. So cats are usually, especially the kittens, most of them do get an infection whereby the eye infection, it's a bacterial infection, which can be easily transmitted to other cats. The good thing that it's easily treatable, and the medication is not that expensive. So the ears, you have to check if there's any dirt, if there is infection going on, this can also be treated. The nose will tell you if the cat is having what you call flu. That is nasal discharge. It could be just light or thick. We could check the teeth. The teeth will usually either one, they can tell you if there's any infection in the mouth. We use it to edge them. And the bum, to just check for diarrhea. So those are the critical examination that you do earlier on, apart from the usual temperature, heart rate, and respiratory rate.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I know maybe you may not, would you be able to describe how to do a gender identification without a diagram?
Yes. It's one of those things that people say is really hard. So the cats, especially since if you look at the bum area, what we are looking at are like you look at the for the males, you'll find that because the penis is not outside, it's sort of like a tiny dot. So the penis and the anus, it's about a half a centimeter. It's far apart, and the penis hole looks like a tiny dot, compared to the female, which the vaginal opening and the anus are quite close, very close, and then it looks like a slit or a comma. So that's the easiest way of differentiating. And for the boys, the testicles don't descend until between 6 to 10 weeks. So it's also a way of aging them. So if you see before 6 weeks, you won't see the testicles, you know that this one is below 6 weeks. But the easier way to differentiate is the space in between the openings. It's far apart in boys than in girls. And then in girls, it's a slit. In boys, is like a dot.
Okay.
Yes.
So the other thing we see is
sorry, I've forgotten. Another one which is very easy. It's the cats that we call either calicos or the tortoiseshells.
Yeah.
So this is all genetic. The tortoiseshells and the calicos, they are 99.999% female. It's very rare to get a male. I think the only one I've had about 2 years ago was found somewhere I think in London. So it's very rare. And most of the time, you usually find them either during when you're taking them for spray, and then you discover it's a male, but it's very, very rare. So most of the calicos are male. So calicos, those are the ones with patches, white, brown, and black. And then the ones who are black with those tiger-like stripes. So those are always nearly 99.99% female.
Okay.
And I think gingers are 75% male. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the tricolored cats tend to be female. That's the one easy way to just tell what gender it is. We find that a lot of people tend to ignore deworming young kittens.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk about the importance of doing this, because people don't understand that such an infestation can really wreak havoc on a young cat.
Yeah, because a young cat needs all the nutrition it gets to grow, because that's the stage where they're having rapid growth. They are vulnerable to diseases. They'll need all the calories and the nutrition to remain healthy. So when they are having worm infestation, that means there's competition for the nutrition. So that means it's not getting adequate nutrition for their growth. And also some of them also, what would say that they suck blood, you know. So it's very important from the outset to start deworming. And the recommendation that we use here and KSPCA, that is Kenya Small and Companion Animal Association recommendation, is that you start deworming your cats from 2 weeks. You do it every 2 weeks until they get to 12 weeks. So that's about 3 months. And then after that, until they're 6 months, you do it every month. And then thereafter is for the rest of their lives is every 3 months. Some people might, yes, it's very important. There are people who might claim that my cat is indoor, but it's what you're forgetting is that they get, we easily contaminate the environment. When you go out and come back in, we can easily carry the eggs with us. And when they groom, when you touch them and then they groom, they can easily pick the eggs. They can easily also pick it from the food and the surfaces where they get, they play on, or the water they drink. So it's very important that you always deworm them. It's not something that you can skimp on.
Okay. And of course, fleas also carry tapeworms. So
true, very much, yes.
Yeah. So if you treat fleas, you're probably reducing the worm infestation in the cat.
Exactly, yeah, because fleas usually cause the tapeworms that affect them also. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then as we continue, what is the general vaccine schedule for starting with kittens?
For kittens, usually it depends on the environment that the cats are in, but the general recommendation again from WSAVA and KSPCA is that they initially get the flu vaccine at 8 weeks old, and then they get a booster at 12 weeks. That's for flu, and then rabies can be done at the same time. Now, these can change depending on other factors. One being that, especially when kittens, they don't have enough time with their mothers or they were abandoned. If you're in an environment where they can easily get infected from the diseases that we generally call flu, you can start the vaccination as early as 6 weeks. In some shelters, they start as early as 4 weeks. In advanced economies, they usually do the testing first. So before they do that, unfortunately, because we don't have the capacity to do titer test all the time. So we time it when the maternal antibody is low. There is something we call maternal antibody interference, whereby if you vaccinate at a point in time that when the maternal antibodies are high, it will interfere with the vaccination. Therefore, immunity will not be imparted, because vaccinating and immunity are totally different, because vaccinating is the act of giving the vaccine, but immunity is when the body actually develops protection against the disease you're vaccinating against. So those are usually two different things. So it's very important depending on the environment. Here at the shelter, we usually can start between 6 to 8 weeks, and then we do the booster for flu at 3 weeks later, together with rabies. One thing about vaccine is that it's not usually 100%. There are cats that we do the first jab and then they get the immunity, but there are those who will only get immunity after getting their full jab, that is at 3 weeks later. And there's a possibility of a small percentage of about 3 to 5% who will never get immunity, even if you vaccinate 10 times. So these are the ones sometimes you find that, oh, my vet vaccinated a cat and then he's still getting flu. So so the issues with the immunology is a deep and wide subject, but basically I can summarize it in that form. So flu, 8 to 12 and to 12 weeks, and then after that you do rabies. Okay. And then you do annual every year.
You repeat annually.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I went out on a tangent, but
No. It's quite It's quite good information. So that's okay,
yes.
and it's comprehensive.
Yeah.
So moving on to spay and neuter, we know that in some countries they start the spay and neuter very early, and they go by the
Yes.
weight of the cat rather than the age of the cat. Maybe you can
Yes.
take us through what the recommendations are.
So this is a discussion or a discussion that has been in the veterinary cycle for a long while, whereby there was what we can say anecdotal evidence that people suggesting if you spay early, you are interfering with hormones, and some animals have been seen to develop urinary incontinence from it. However, there is no data that actually backs that up. So that's why you find, especially in the US, where they start doing it as early as 3 months, or either using weights or doing it at 3 months. And they have never seen any adverse effects. But for us here at the shelter, our recommendation is 6 months, just before they get on heat, because we feel that that's the best time. We've allowed the animal to develop properly and without affecting the hormones that help with growth, especially with the bones. So our recommendation here is that 6 months going up. If you find people who are doing at 3 months, it works, it's okay, and don't fight them. But 6 months is our recommended here in Kenya.
Okay.
Yes.
Sarah, do you have anything to add?
Something I forgot, especially with the spay and neuter. We usually, because of the way the stressful nature of or the event when the cats come on heat, because it can be quite annoying for some people, because the way the cats scream at night, and it can go for a week and people don't even get sleep. That's the time somebody wants to dash off to the vet, because they believe if they're spayed now, it will stop it. For me personally, from experience, I usually recommend that you have to observe until the cat has finished her heat, and then you wait at least 1 week. This will allow the uterus to involute and to go back to its what I can say normal physiological self. Because if you try to sterilize a cat when it's on heat, there is increased blood supply to the uterus, and then the uterine wall is thickened. So if you don't do your switch as well, it can easily let go and they'll be bleeding, and it can adversely affect the cat. So even if the cat has come on it, I usually request that please kindly put up with the cat for a week, and then let me know a week later, then you can plan for that. So don't rush your cat to be spayed when she's on heat.
Okay.
It's not good for her. Yes.
Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, if I may add that hygiene and making sure that you've disinfected everywhere all the time is very important with vet care, because as a foster, you come across different types of cats, different types of issues. So what we usually use is jig. Like I go through jig like we go through drinking water. So you have to be very keen on that to protect yourself, protect your pets. You probably have pets of your own, and protect also the fosters. By being hygienic regularly, you ensure that whatever infections, whatever bacteria is dealt with regular, actually on a daily basis. I have to use jig, cleaning everything, washing the bedding with jig and stuff like that. So it's very important to take that into consideration.
Okay. And especially when you have an outbreak of disease, things like panleukopenia, the isolation and the disinfection is very critical, not just when they're sick, but even after they've been in your home.
Yes, especially if you've had a case of panleukopenia in your environment, it's important, because don't use things like Dettol, it won't work. The panleukopenia virus is very stable in the environment and very stubborn. However, jig really works well. I usually tell people you don't have to do anything fancy. Simply use jik, diluted 1 part jik, 8 part water, and do it regularly every day. And if you've ever had a situation whereby there was a cat in your house which had panleukopenia, sometimes I say if there are no other cats in the house and you want to introduce another one, wait for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And before you introduce any cat, it has to be fully vaccinated. Otherwise, you'll continuously have a cycle of bringing a cat and then it gets sick, it's treated or recovers or doesn't recover, dies, and then you bring another one. So it's important to give that time to make sure you've gotten rid of the infectious material. Yeah, and then also any material that was used by that sick cat has to be discarded, however expensive it was.
Yeah. Discarded, not disinfected.
Discarded, yes.
Are you saying we should throw away all the beddings and utensils and?
Yeah. It's better that way than trying to disinfect it, because sometimes you may not be as thorough as required. So the best is just discard everything, because you can't discard your house. So it's the only thing you can use. You can disinfect
your house and yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then now looking out for what things should we look out? Like, what are I just put down a list of the things that might show you that there's something going on with your cat. Maybe we can go through this list, and if you have any more additions. So we can start with you, Sarah.
Yes. Sorry, Doc, you can go ahead.
Just go ahead. It's okay.
Okay. So regarding skin condition, you have to keep in mind that most of those skin conditions like ringworms and whatnot are also contagious to humans. I've had my share of ringworms with some kittens like twice, despite my like I try my best to be hygienic and all, but it does happen. So you have to be keen when treating it. You have to know how to see it. Sometimes it's a small spot. You think, it's nothing. It's just some flakes or something, but that's why you need to contact your vet when you see something that you're not sure of, and you start treatment as soon as possible. You do not delay. Delaying will just make it worse. It spreads on the cat, it spreads on your furniture, it spreads on you, and then you have a bigger problem than dealing with a small issue with the kitten. Worms also can be an issue for humans. So even as a foster, I think all humans should be doing deworming as well for themselves. But as a foster, I'm more keen to do it because you never know when you're handling the cat. As I said, hygiene is very important. Especially when they have skin condition, you might need to use gloves when you are dealing with them, when you're giving them their medicine or their medicated creams, ointments, or shampoos, to protect yourself, protect your family, protect your pets, and also protect the kitten from spreading the infection all over the place. As I said, doctor said that cats are good at masking symptoms of diseases, but sometimes you have to also be extra keen to see those small symptoms. Like a kitten usually plays, she's not playing, something is off. So you might be wrong, but I'd rather be wrong than be late helping the kitten get the treatment that she needs. I remember one time, even Dr. Allen is here, I called him at 2 a.m. because a kitten just started collapsing. And he came and we tried to save the kitten, and the kitten didn't make it. And it took just a couple of hours to lose a kitten that was perfectly fine before. So sometimes even when trying to do the right thing, we might lose those kittens, but at least you have to try your best to ensure that you've tried all the options. That's why I always say you have to have a good relationship with your vet, because the vet came out of his way in the middle of the night. It was curfew time, and still he came through to save the kitten. So you have to be very keen, and I think it comes with experience. More exposed to more kittens, then you are easily able to spot such issues. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, one thing that Sarah has mentioned is whereby it's so the the challenges that fosters go through, and especially when they lose their kittens, it's not an easy thing, and it really affects them because they've gone out of their way to provide the care. And I usually tell them that as long as you've done your best, sometimes there are things that you cannot control, because we usually have, there's something that we call kitten fading syndrome, whereby how you can never put your finger on what actually caused this, because suddenly they just become ill, and you check everything seems to be well, but somehow they can't, you can't treat it, or you can't find out what's causing it. So so it's usually also important. I don't know, I think I feel like fosters should form a group whereby they can just come out and talk about the experiences, because I believe the mental challenges that they face is not easy. They don't speak about it, but I know it's there. With the skin condition, things to look out for is loss of hair. You know, it can be like a small spot or the whole body. So what you can usually call alopecia. So whenever you notice anything that like that, is very important to talk to your veterinarian, because it could be fungal infection, which usually affect especially kids, children aged from 12 and below, whose immunity has not fully developed, or somebody who is immunocompromised, or people who are elderly. They can easily get the fungal infection, because some of them are contagious, or what we call zoonotic. These are the diseases that can come from animals to us human beings. So it's very important, that one, and also the worms. And also what you can also look out for is flea allergy dermatitis. We mostly see it in dogs, but in cats also, I've seen some cats having it, whereby they lose fur or hair around the rump, and it's very itchy. You can look out for that, or what people will call mange. This is a mite infection, and we tend to see them around the ears and the face. And also in cats that have no pigmentation, these are cats who are white. They tend to get what we call ultra UV, what's the other word? Radiation alopecia, and it can easily develop to cancer. It can be cancerous. I've seen many cats being treated for mange or ear infection, yet it was what medically we call squamous cell carcinoma. By the time you get to it, it's already too late. When it comes to worms, is also, we get a bit of also some zoonosis, or diseases that worms that can cross from animals to us. That's why sometimes I tell people, don't kiss your cats or your dogs, because they lick their bum, and they can easily transfer the same to you. So it's very important to make sure that you protect yourself against that. And also on constipation, we tend to see this one with kittens sometimes, especially if the diet is changed rapidly, or they are not getting adequate hydration. It's very easy to miss it out, and to miss out on it, and by the time you are handling it, the kitten is in dire condition. But this one can be easily managed. Yeah. Wounds are very common, especially with kittens that are found, or cats that are found or picked from the streets. They can be from bites, when they attack maybe by a dog, or people hit them, or they were just injured, or wherever they were in an environment where that was causing injury to them. So this one can be easily dealt with. Mobility skills, most of these are congenital, and it's one of the challenges I've had, especially, I know I learned about swimmers from Naomi, because I used to see it. We brought in cats that cannot walk, and it's called a swimmer syndrome because of the way they sort of walk, right, Naomi?
Yeah, it's when the back legs kind of splay out, especially with young kittens. Yeah.
Yes. And I was stumped, as a young veterinarian, what this condition is, because we were never taught about it in school. And even up to now, you cannot even find scientific papers describing what it is and how to deal with them. But I know the people who have come up with ways of dealing with it. And there's a lady who has actually developed a way of helping cats with swimmers. So you don't have to actually put them down. Some of them can be easily helped. And I know, Naomi, you've dealt with a few, and also another foster who's helped us. There are also other, yes. And then also the other cats with also congenital condition whereby they have a neurological problem where their brain hasn't developed fully, and you find them toppling over. They cannot walk properly, or you think they're having fits and they just roll and fall around the place. And most of these, especially when they're brought to shelters, they're usually put down. However, I've really seen amazing fosters who've managed to work with such cats, and even they have grown and are having like a full life whereby they're able to eat, play, and live their life fully. So sometimes it takes somebody who has the heart and the time and the passion for these animals to help animals with such motor skills. The biggest problem we have is the kittens that have come with back injuries. And such kittens, we find that their stomach is distended and they cannot even control their urine. Most of these, we've tried in many ways to try and help them according to my experience, and I've never been successful. So most of the time we end up actually having to euthanize them. And some people may think that it's just an easier way, but you need to look at what we call quality of life. So you might get yourself stuck in this condition. It's called a savior mode condition, where even as vets, we have it, whereby you really want to save an animal, but it's actually suffering. You're causing more suffering for it. So sometimes you need to have a discussion with the veterinarian to find out, is this kitten or animal going to have quality life? If not, then now you may have to now have a discussion about actually having to look at now euthanasia. Yes, which is also part of dealing such condition. Yeah.
The champion for kittens with cerebellar hypoplasia.
Yes.
Is on this call. Lina,
yes. Yes, Lina.
Lina, we can see you here.
I work with her.
Yeah. So she's for mom when it comes to kittens with mobility. Maybe, Lina, would you want to mention anything? No? Maybe give us a few tips or your experience on what it takes to really dedicate yourself for these kittens and cats.
You just put me on the spotlight. Wow.
Yes. Ole, are you here?
So I wouldn't say it's an easy task, to be honest, because Dr. James knows how many times I come to him and I'm just complaining of, oh my God, Wobbs just falls on his boob and I have to bathe him every day. But it's not an easy task. But what makes me be able to take care of them is because I just see a life that doesn't have to end because of a disability that they didn't cause, or that was just a mistake somehow that happened in their life. And it's not something that's reversible, especially for cerebellar hypoplasia. And I wish there was some way we could find a cure, but I have two cats. One has mild CH and the other one has severe CH, wobs and wiggles. And taking care of them requires the utmost patience known to man. Because considering the fact that they can't really walk a straight line, imagine you're dealing with someone that's permanently drunk, for lack of a better word, and they keep falling on their poop on the daily and spray poop on the wall. But for me, it's more of the fact that if that's the only thing that's making them not be able to get adopted, then that's not a big issue for me, because I understand how it is to be a special needs person, because I am kind of a special needs person and I do need support. And I see them trying so hard to live a normal life. And to me, that's all I need, just the determination and the fact that they want to live. And that's all it takes for me. And whether they have CH or whether they are born blind or whether something happened to them or they were run over by a car, because Sarah Jamal knows I do have a cat she gave me called Snowy, who has, Dr. James, I can't pronounce this word, incontinence. Yes, thank you. She poops and pees as she moves. So when she moves, you move with a mop behind her. And it takes a lot of, like Sarah says, a lot of jik, a lot of hygiene, a lot of cleanliness, and a lot, if you don't have everything, just have patience, because these animals really, really just, they have some kind of love that I can't explain. And it's just amazing to see how, despite their disabilities, they still play, they still eat well, they still love and just live life, which to me is all I need, to be honest.
Thank you so much. I know that, yeah, especially as we call them wobbly kittens, they are a bit of a handful, and they they require all your patience, and more than even patience. It's just a special kind of life for them, but they are full of life and they can live quite a long and useful life.
That's
okay.
True. Yeah. Before you go, I think the last one is diarrhea.
Yeah.
Yes. For diarrhea, I mean, this one you can definitely tell what it is, because it could either be loose, watery stool, and the origin could be either one, dietary, especially when you try to change from one diet to a different one. Can easily cause them to scour or diarrhea for a few days as their body or their stomach adjusts to new food. And most of the time you can see either it's mucoid or it has a bit of blood, but usually stops with time, maybe within 48 max 72 hours. Another type of diarrhea can cause like infectious. So this could be either from bacterial infection, either from the food or something it came into contact with, or could be from viral infection, or it could be from protozoa or worm infection. So whenever you have such a situation, it's also still important to notify your vet, who will do a fecal test to find out what could be going on and treat it accordingly. It's important not to wait for long, especially for more than 48 hours, because the cat or the kitten can easily be dehydrated, and you don't want to cause a situation where there's an imbalance in the body, because for cats, once their body goes out of balance, if I could simply say it, it's very hard to bring them back, unlike dogs, who you can easily try and rescue. For cats, by the time you realize it's out of balance, it's usually way too late. So if you have a situation where diarrhea is going on for more than 48 hours, it's important to inform your veterinarian, and especially if there's also blood. That also includes vomiting. Any vomiting that persists more than 24 hours, kindly tell your veterinarian, because vomiting could either be from something that they've eaten, or they're trying to the body is trying to get rid of it. But if it stays for more than 24 hours, that's an emergency. Please inform your veterinarian.
Okay, thank you. That was quite comprehensive. Sarah, do you have anything to add?
No, I think Dr. has covered everything.
All right, so maybe we can quickly look at how to socialize feral cats. So Sarah, I know you've handled quite a lot of kittens that are feral and some adult cats that are feral, but they have the possibility of being socialized enough to live in a home and to be friendly. What are your best tips for this?
I'd say first realize whether that cat wants to be socialized or not. some cases it's just a waste of time, waste of energy. So with trapping, neutering, and releasing would be the best option for such cats, because trying to keep them at home will just make them depressed, and you're not going anywhere with them. Kittens, they have a window where it's so easy to deal with them, especially when they are under the 2.5 months old. So it's easier to handle such cases. When they're a bit older, you try your best. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you find a patient house that doesn't want a cuddly cat, wants just a cat who will be in the house, but has its own place and own personality. So when you find a kitten that is a bit feral, it's usually they are scared more than being feral per se. So first you have to be very careful, because you have to be safe as well. You don't know the history of that cat. You don't know whether that cat has infections, has rabies, has whatever. So you have to be very careful when handling such cases. You don't just jump to rescue the cat. Trapping, you use the right tools to trap, either by using the humane trap that you can find in places like KSPCA or TNR, or sometimes with some of the fosters. That's the easiest and safest option. Sometimes if you must, you can use a really large blanket where you just throw it on the kitten and be quick and capture the kitten. Some organizations, they have the net, which also you have to be very careful when using, and you have to be like conversant on how to use it. Then when you get the cat, what you do is that you have to keep it in a safe space. Basically, a cage would be the safest option, because you can keep the kitten or the cat in the cage with the litter box and food. And then it's easier to deal with the cat rather than just throw it in a room for the cat to be jumping all over the place. Some of the things you might do while you have the cat in the cage, safely secured, is that talk to them while you're in the room. Just keep talking so they get used to your voice. They don't feel threatened by your voice. Don't show them your other cats. Don't bring, I don't know what, something different to them that might disturb them or make them tense. So while feeding them, you talk to them. You see that they've calmed a bit, especially with kittens. You might try to offer them a bit of food with your hand so they can smell. Again, Kitten Lady has a good video on that, and it's much more detailed. But also, like, sometimes you might take a blanket, just wrap the kitten quickly and just hold the kitten and just pet the head slowly till the kitten calms down. As I said, it's mostly fear that you're dealing with than being aggressive. So people sometimes look, oh, this cat is hissing at me. It's just scared. She's never had to deal with a human before, or maybe it was a negative encounter that the kitten had with humans. You can play with the ribbon with the kitten. You can play with a stick. Things that you still have your distance, but you're still interacting with the kitten, which will help. As I said, as you are dealing with the cat or the kitten, you are evaluating your options. Sometimes you get a cat that is injured, so you still have to take care of that cat, but the cat is big or feral, and you still need to help them. So you have to be careful while doing so. I'm actually sitting next to one that I picked from the street, and now she is like very friendly. She would play with me and stuff, but then suddenly you'll see she might try to attack me. So I keep her like at a distance. I respect her space. I respect her cues, her body language. Once she tells me that, oh no, I don't want to play, I do not force it. Same goes for kittens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. There's some cats that never get out of it. I have two of them, Masala and Bailey. Bailey completely never wants to be touched at all. Masala can tolerate it for a few minutes, but it's usually on her terms, and especially where she is at that moment. She tends to sit in specific spots where at that point she will allow you to pet her, but only for a few minutes. So some cats never get out of it, even if you socialize them from when they're kittens, and others adapt quite easily.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things it's easy to forget about cats is that the contact between humans and cats is quite recent, unlike dogs who brought themselves very early on, and cats tend to be their own masters. Cats are what we would call, the name is escaping, they prefer to being alone, right? So when you're introducing a cat or to a new home, it's very important that you don't cause disharmony, especially if if it's a multi-cat household, because in as much as sometimes cats can be in the same environment eating together, they are probably tolerating each other. Cats that were brought up together and bonded as kittens, those are okay, but then most cats prefer they stay alone and by themselves. So it's very important that you take proper measures before introducing such a cat to a multi-cat household. For example, probably having to separate it from others in a room for about 2 weeks, and then gently trying to introduce them to the others, maybe by bringing the other ones close to the door where the other cat is being isolated, and then taking the step of maybe putting it in a carrier and trying to introduce to the others and see how they react. One of the easier ways is especially is taking the bedding of one cat and taking to the other one to smell it, and vice versa. And sometimes even letting them exchange the bedding so that they can get used to each other's smell. So if you see that they don't agree, they hiss and try to scratch, when you try to do that, they will know, then you will know that these cats may not be a proper fit in the same house. Yes, that's one of the most important things you can do, especially for cats when introducing to a new household.
Yeah.
You can use anxiolytics or pheromones to help also reduce the anxiety when introducing a kitten or a cat.
It's very important to know what your cats are like and what they like or what they don't like, so
Exactly,
that
yes.
you don't also cause stress with them as you introduce
Yeah.
new homes. Some cats
Yes.
get along with any cat, others are quite territorial, others
Mhm.
are simply just loners and they want to be left alone.
Exactly, because if you introduce cat, because an introduction of a new animal and a new cat into a household usually causes so much stress to the other ones. You might actually think your cat is sick because they'll stop eating, or they will stop using the cat litter, or if they are male and they are not maybe castrated, they start spraying all over the house because they're trying to mark their territory. So you can easily see such behavior when a cat is in so much stress. You might want to treat the cat, yet the cause is there's another cat that has been introduced. So it's very important to gently introduce a cat to a new household. Otherwise, you'll be having all these issues in the house. And you find somebody who wants to throw away their cat because it's not using the litter or it's spraying all over the house, yet it's just a matter of trying to find balance and peace in the house.
Yeah. Okay, so we can look at the last bit of this. And I mean, the point of fostering is that we find homes for these cats and kittens. So we can look at what it is that we need to find those homes and what to look out for, and what the options are when a cat does not fit into a home. So maybe we can start with Sarah. What do you generally do to vet
Okay.
potential homes?
So the vetting process is actually the most difficult part of fostering, because it requires you dealing with so many people who might agree or disagree with your vetting. We have some people who think it's invasion of privacy or something like that, while we're just aiming for the same thing, which is the well-being of the cat and the well-being of the new owner, to make sure that there is a match. As a foster, I've spent most of the time with the cat, so I know what they like, dislike, how they would be in a house with other cats, how they would be with other dogs or with children or whatever. So you, as a foster, have some idea about how this cat would react to the new environment. So the main things that we ask about is that if they have other pets. The second thing is that whether they live in a house, in an apartment, if it's an apartment, is the balcony secured? Because no one wants a cat falling from the balcony because it wasn't just secured, which shouldn't cost much, but a falling cat would cost a lot of heartbreak and a lot of vet care. The other things that we focus on as fosters that we ask about is that if they have children, how are they around the cats? Do they have any allergies? I always ask people who have children to take their children to a place like KSPCA to be exposed to cats as much as possible and see how they react to it. If they start showing symptoms of allergy, then maybe it's not the best time to adopt a new cat. Though we have to keep in mind that sometimes we are not allergic to all cats, but to certain types of cats, or not types of cats, but rather types of because it's usually in the saliva that causes the issue of allergy. Another thing is that I focus on is, are they willing to vaccinate annually and neuter when the cat is 6 months old? This is very important because part of our work is that we want to end the cycle rather than have endless number of cats that just are abandoned or don't have a home. Because the same person who is okay with having kittens or they want to be grandparents or whatever, is that they come later and they're like, okay, there are too many, I cannot handle them. Or they just throw them outside and then somehow those kittens end up going back to fosters if they are lucky. Some, they just die in the street or just live a really difficult life. So people accepting to annually vaccinate and neuter, it's not because someone has too much money to spend, but rather because it's actually more economical to do it than to just leave the cat to get sick and then you pay a fortune to treat the cat. Another thing that we need to make sure that the person is not a breeder, the person is aware of the responsibility that they are undertaking. What if it's an expat who is looking for a kitten or a cat to adopt? What happens to the cat when they travel? Are they ready for some emergencies with the cat? What happens when you go on holiday? So such questions that we are not trying to know your life or something, but we're just trying to match you with the right cat, making sure that the cat that I've invested my time, my effort, my sleepless nights, my time, my money is going to the right place. And to avoid having that call where people are like, okay, I don't want to keep the cat anymore. What should I do? That's when we are lucky as fosters to get that call, because at least we get the chance to get back the cat. But sometimes what happens is that the cat is discarded. So also we ask about the willingness of the adopter to give updates, send updates, how the cat is adjusting, if they need any help on how to go about something that the cat is doing, or it's not adapting to the new environment. As a foster, I might be able to give a bit of information to help with the new situation. So it's basically these things that some people actually don't agree with, and that's for me a red flag, because if we are on the same page, we would all care for the cat the same way. Through my journey, I've had amazing adopters and amazing stories, and I still think that accidents do happen and cats can get themselves in really weird situations, but there are those who are just purely neglecting the cat, not caring for the cat. And I've had a few cases where I had to go myself and pick up the cats because those people didn't want. So I think transparency, honesty, and communication is very important between the adopter and the foster.
Yeah, it's very true. And people have, complained about the kind of questions we ask. But the bottom line is that we want to first match you with a suitable cat and then make sure that the home is the best also for the cat. James, do you have any additions to this?
Something I can call, something I've seen with fosters is whereby, for the fosters, because they've spent so much time with this kitten, they really want the best for the cats. And I've had situations whereby fosters have actually refused to adopt out a cat because they feel they will never get the love that they are giving these cats. And you end up with something we call a foster fail. Because, so this will be one cat and then another one. Within no time, you have 12 cats and you only started as a foster. Just because that there's that fear of letting go. Because sometimes I always feel adopting out a cat is usually a form of trust, hoping that the person is actually genuine and they're going to take care of this. And because a vetting process is subjective, you never know what happens. But for what I've seen, cats being adopted, only very few of them will have failures. So sometimes as fosters, we may have to actually learn to trust human beings and just not to hold on so much to the cats. The bit about allergy is quite an interesting one. I work with lots of cats and I'm actually allergic to them. They call it the vet flu. So you find me either wearing a mask or having to pop some allergy pills, just antihistamines, just to make sure that I can work with them, especially when we are having what you call a feral cat scheme, whereby we go to a place where they are having issues with the cats and we take them, spay neuter them, and return them. So I tend to get the allergy. So I do understand when people return animals because of that, and people feel like it's the fur that is causing it, but it's usually the dander that's causing that because of the protein that is in the saliva. There are people who are actually hyperallergic to such an environment. It's interesting because I've met one cat foster who was allergic to cats, but what she did is that she'll every day making sure that apart from brushing the cat, they vacuum the house every day. Initially, it's usually very difficult, but when you vacuum every day, you actually reduce the dander and the fur in the environment, and you actually get used to it. So it's something that if you are willing, you can deal with it, but if you're not willing, it's okay if you are allergic to cats, and it's okay to return the cat. So it's not like it's a fail of adoption. Sometimes our health is important.
Yes, and like you're saying, even we fosters, yes, sometimes we have so many foster fails where we end up keeping more cats than we wanted to, but they become part of our families. We can't help it. Yeah.
I have 4.
That is how I have 7 cats.
Yes, I know fosters who even have up to 12. So I won't mention names. So
no, we know them.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. That is the end of our session with Sarah and James, the formal session. So I'm opening up the floor to questions. If anyone has any questions that you might want to ask, whether they're related to fosters or not, if you have any vet care questions that you want to ask, you can ask Dr. James. If you have any questions you want to ask me or Sarah, please do so. So any questions, the floor is open. Please, you're available to unmute yourselves.
Naomi, just if I may add, is that the community for fosters is a strong community here. And I think people should be encouraged to join. And because we really need fosters, we are very limited. And what I would tell people is that don't be scared. We are here to support you. We are here to help you with information, with resources. We share stuff between us, and you just need to see what you can do. Trust me, even if you don't have the time, even a cat that is 8 weeks old can survive. with providing food and shelter better than just being outside in the street. So don't be scared, reach out to the fosters and see how you can help.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Mobe, I see your hand was up. Did you have a question?
So thank you, Sarah and James, for the nice presentation. So just maybe from my end, I know some hacks or tricks. I used to feed, let's say a kitten 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Definitely they cannot feed on their own. So are there any hacks or tricks you can share with us, you usually use?
One of the things you can work with is age, whereby knowing how much to feed at a certain age or at a certain weight. So for example, at 1 week, a day to 1 week old, you can feed every 2 hours, then 1 to 2 weeks, every 3 hours. And with that, if you need, I can send you a manual that I normally use. So we have, especially if you can go to many pet shops, they have these feeding bottles that you can use to feed them. However, from experience, some fosters can tell you there are kittens that actually bite through the teats, and you cannot actually keep replenishing them. So some people use syringes. The food to feed, because most cats, close to 65% of cats are lactose intolerant, we try to avoid giving them cow milk because some of them cannot actually metabolize the lactose. You can use milk replacer, the commercial one, and they usually have recommended amount and feeding regime that per the brand. You can also make your own milk replacer at home. Ideally, people suggest you can use goat milk, which is easier on their stomach, doesn't cause them diarrhea. People have used like full fat cow milk with you mix, let's say 250 ml long life full fat cow milk with 1 egg yolk and a teaspoon of glucose, and you can use it as a milk replacer. Even though it's cow milk, we've seen that it actually works well. Yes, I think, and then you can start weaning them at about 5 to 8 weeks by starting to introduce wet food. That's the commercial wet food, or the one that you can make at home. Yep.
Okay, so I wanted to show you.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you can see. Can you see my feeding bottle?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah, it's tiny, but these are available. Yeah, I'm sure Sarah has them in stock in her shop, and they're available in most pet stores. So the teats come in different sizes, and you can progress the teat as the kitten grows. I prefer to use this with the 1 to 3 week old kittens. They tend to use this better than any other. Then in terms of replacer, we have this brand and available in the market. And there's also another one called Kitten that's in a green packet. This is readily available in many pet stores. And then when you can't find any kitten milk, I also go for baby formula, but lactose free. So this is one of the brands that most of my kittens have adapted to. So this is actually what I'm using for the current kittens that I have. And they've taken to it quite well. So you can look at what is available in the market and choose the options that you have. And if you, like James has said, if you ask the fosters, we do have a lot of tips to share, because a lot of us have fostered, especially the 0 to 2 week old kittens who need constant bottle feeding. So there's a lot of resources that we can share. James, I'll pick up the manual that you have from you, and I'll share it with everybody who's logged in. So at least the resources can be shared widely.
Yeah, sure. One thing not to forget is that, or to remember, is that after feeding your kitten, make sure that you help them take a wee and and poo, because this is what their mother does. Once they're fed, she usually just lick their bum. This helps them to wee and pee. So for us, what you can do is just take a cotton wool, it could be dry or wet, and just gently wipe their bum or the area around the bum, perineal area, and this will help them poo. Because if you don't do that, you can see them continue to blot and they won't be able to do it by themselves.
Yeah, I'll also share our kitten guide. We have one on Cat Lovers Kenya that we usually keep updating. So I'll share that as part of the material. Yes, the cotton wool, the kitten, the baby wipes, the tissue paper are quite essential in your kit for the kittens and in foster care. So I'll share the full resource list.
Thank you, Naomi, and James and Sarah for the presentation and the feedback.
I must say that a lot of it comes with experience. So the more you foster, the more you learn and you get better at it. There's no other way. Anyone else with a question? Or a comment or an observation, not just questions. Okay, I think that's it for tonight. Sarah and James, do you have anything else to add?
No, thank you.
I think that's it. Taking care of kittens is usually a rewarding endeavor. And as much as it's challenging, but when you see these kittens, when they grow up, get homes, sometimes when you see them a year later, it warms your heart. So it's one of those things that is fulfilling in life. So, and thank you for inviting me to this forum.
Thank you, Naomi.
All right, thank you very much. Sarah's contact and Dr. James's contact are available on the screen, but again, I will share the same with everybody. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. It really makes a difference when we have an audience. Of course, we don't want to do this for ourselves. We'll be back. We're coming back to our weekly schedule. We got interrupted with elections and everything. So we're coming back to our weekly schedule, and as soon as we confirm the next guests, which we should do in the next 2 or 3 days, we'll send out the invites again. Please feel free to always reach out to me if you have any questions. To all the vets who always log in, if you want to be a participant, please do let me know. We're always happy to take on more guests. And yeah, we hope to see you next week. Look out for the invitation. Again, thank you, James, and thank you, Sarah, for being here. And good night, everybody. That's the end of the session.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.